Madam Chair, we're ready to go.
Thanks, Fausto. I declare the meeting open at 6:02, and before I commence the meeting, I'd like to, on behalf of Bayside Council and of the panel, acknowledge that we are all meeting on land of various different Aboriginal peoples, and would like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Some introductory comments about the purpose of the Bayside Planning Panel. So this panel is charged with considering planning proposals of any scale and value and determining development applications where the value is less than $30 million, where there is a potential conflict of interest, where there is contentious development or a substantial departure from development standards, or where it is sensitive development. In particular, the panel must consider development applications which have attracted 10 or more unique objections in a public meeting, and this is a public meeting. Other development applications can be considered outside of public meetings. The meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page, and the recording of the meeting is an official record of Council and may be made available to anyone who makes an application under the Freedom of Information, under the Government Information Public Access Act. The meeting is not being held in person because of the limitations on doing that flowing from the pandemic. Applicants and members of the public that have registered to speak on an item will be asked to unmute their phone or computer at the relevant time to address the panel and to answer any questions. Speakers are asked to restrict their addresses to about 3 minutes, and you will be advised once you've reached 2 minutes, and then we will ask you to make your final comments, please. Once the panel has heard from all of the speakers on each item, the panel will, at the end of the meeting, make its determination in relation to both of the development applications that we have on tonight's agenda, and that determination will be published on Council's website within a week. So before we commence our consideration of the two development applications, we will introduce ourselves. My name is Marcia Downey. I'm the chair of this evening's meeting, and my background is in law. I've worked as a lawyer for about 35 years, and much of that time has been focused on environment and planning law. And I've done that work as General Counsel at City of Sydney Council and Inner West Council, and also worked in state government as a planning lawyer and in private legal practice, most recently at Allen's Lawyers. I also have expertise in public administration and governance, having worked in those areas as a senior executive in state and local government, and I'm involved in other local planning panels, in regional planning panels, and in state government committees, and I'm a director of City West Housing, community housing company. So, Robert, I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Robert Montgomery. My background is in town planning and government administration. I've spent many years working in local government and state government as a planner and at various executive levels. More recently, I operate my own town planning practice. Have done so for some 15 years. I also sit on two other Sydney local planning panels as an expert member, and I'm a chair at Wollongong Council's local planning panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Judy?
My name's Judy Clark. I'm a registered planner with over 35 years experience as a town planner working in local government. I've worked for numerous Sydney councils, managing development assessment, and I'm also an expert member on two other panels and a regional panel as a council appointed expert. And I currently operate my own town planning consultancy as a sole trader.
Thanks, Judy. And Peter is our community member. Peter, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Peter Cowder. I'm the community representative on the planning panel for today's meeting. I'm retired after a career in local government, mainly in planning and development related roles. I do have formal qualifications in planning, and relevant to me being the community representative. I've been a rate-paying resident of what is now the Bayside local government area for around 35 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. There are no apologies for this evening's meeting. In terms of disclosures of interest, each of the panel members has completed a declaration of interest which showed that they did not have anything to declare in relation to tonight's agenda items, but I'll ask for the record each of the panel members to please state whether they have any conflicts of interest in relation to tonight's business. I do not.
Robert Montgomery, I don't have any conflicts of interest.
Judy Clark, no conflicts of interest.
Peter Cowder, no conflicts of interest.
Thanks, panel. Minutes of previous meetings. The panel notes that the minutes of the Bayside Local Planning Panel meeting held on the 5th of October have been confirmed as a true record of proceedings by the chairperson of that meeting. We don't have any planning proposals, and so now that brings us to the two development application, well, the two items on tonight's agenda. The first item is for a development application for 24 Napoleon Street, Sans Souci. We have a written submission which has been received and read by the panel, and that was received from Mrs. Kim and Mr. Neil Martin, who are affected neighbours, and that submission was against the officer's recommendation. The officer's recommendation is that the development application be approved. So that written submission was against the approval of the development application. We have two speakers registered to speak in support of the officer's recommendation, and they are Rhonda Jamu and Steliani Lascaris. Whoever would like to go first. We have Andrew Lamparelli. Are you here to speak in relation to the 24 Napoleon Street, Sans Souci matter, Andrew?
No. Hello, can you hear me?
Madam Chair, we have Stelina on Teams, and she is one of the applicants for 6.1.
No, not the video, just the one.
Thanks, Fausto. Steliani, if you'd like to go ahead and address the panel.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can, thanks.
Okay, so I am the proposed owner-operator of the cafe that's intended to go into that space. So I'm just here to answer any questions that you have in regards to the operations of the cafe. And Rhonda Jamlouis is available to answer anything in regards to the planning.
Thanks, Steliani. We did have some questions about one of the, as you probably know, in order for this development application to be approved, it relies on existing use rights, which means that the use of a shop was in existence before the local environmental plan that prohibited that use in this area. And what we don't have before us is evidence that that use as a shop has been happening since I think it's 1982 when the controls changed. Can you say anything about the use of the shop? How long have you been involved in the business?
Okay, so I'm not actually, I don't own the business 24 Napoleon Street that's currently there, which is like a mixed business. I own the cafe at 36 Tuffy Avenue, Sans Souci, which is proposed to go into that site should it be approved. In regards to the
sorry, did you say that you own the shop that's on the shop?
No, I own the business that's proposed to go into that shop should the DA be approved. In regards to the existing use rights, Rhonda Jamlouis, who I think should be on here, is equipped to answer those questions. She actually prepared the report upon submission in regards to that.
Are you there, Rhonda? Would you like to, if you're there, if you'd like to just introduce yourself and tell us what you can tell us about how that site has been used over the last decades? You there, Rhonda?
Rhonda hasn't teamed in yet, Madam Chair.
Right. Thank you. Well, we'll leave that for the moment. Do any panel members have any questions for Ms. Lascaris about the proposed cafe?
Yes, I have a question, if I may. It's
Thanks,
Robert
Rob.
Montgomery.
Yep.
You're operating a cafe nearby, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's the opposite side of the road, 36 Tuffy Avenue.
Right. Okay. And is that cafe going to remain in operation as well as this one, or is it going to be a different? Is the existing cafe going to close?
At this stage, we haven't determined as to what we will do. That cafe is quite a very small operation. We've been there for the last 10 years. If it does continue to exist as a cafe, we will continue our current operation. If not, it will more than likely change to a different sort of business, I assume. But that'll be up to the landlord, of course. I don't own the building.
No, I was asking whether your existing cafe would close.
No.
No, okay. The other question I had is that as during the course of this application, initially you wanted to trade from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and during the course of discussions with the council, you've agreed to change that to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's a fairly significant reduction in hours. How's that going to impact on you? Do you think it's still viable and achievable with those very limited hours?
With those limited hours is pretty much doing what I've currently been doing in the space 36 Tuffy Avenue for the last 10 years. So our intention was to operate between those hours. The extension of the hours were merely as a buffer should we have taken on private parties or as a one-off sort of event. But the hours between 7 and 5 is what we propose to operate as, and that's not no effect at all.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Can I just clarify, Ms. Lascaris, that the proposal is that the cafe take up, so there's a private dwelling, somebody lives there, so that will continue, and then there's a storeroom, and then there's also it's a part of the shop. Is it proposed that any element of the shop continue or that the storeroom use continue?
Okay, so it's a little bit confusing. This is our second submission on the same space. So that storeroom was from the first submission. So it's actually not a storeroom. It's going to stay exactly what it is trading as at the moment, which is just a vacant space. So we're only occupying the proposed cafe area, which I'm pretty sure is highlighted in yellow on the plan.
So that's the corner, and then behind that in red,
yeah,
is
currently a dwelling, residential dwelling.
So the blue part's the dwelling, isn't it?
I'll just open it up.
Yeah, residential dwelling is blue, the storeroom is green, and then in red.
What page is this on? Can I just confirm?
It's on page 10 of the council report. Or if you're just looking at this
I am, yeah, I'm looking at this one.
Page 3 of 34.
Yeah, 34.
Just can't read the writing in the red and can't work out what the red.
Yeah. Sorry, just give me a minute. Also, I've just been advised by Rhonda that she's still awaiting a link in order to join.
Fausto will assist with that.
Sure. Sorry, won't be a moment.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So the area in blue is a residential space.
Yeah.
So that's page 10 of this
Yep.
of
Yeah,
the
that's,
meeting, correct? Yeah. Okay.
That's the plan I'm looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yellow is where we're proposed to be situated. And the red is a part of the existing building, which is currently they're currently trading as what they were doing currently, which is a convenience store. So that will not change. It's what it's been trading at for the last how many years?
So there'll still be a convenience store on the site plus the cafe. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah, which is currently what they're operating as and what they have been operating as for the last number of years.
Yeah.
So I'm proposing to occupy only a part of that space.
Yeah. So the shop will get smaller, and then
Correct.
in the plate area that used to be shop, there'll be the cafe.
Correct. Yeah.
And hours that you're asking for is you start at 7 a.m.
Yep.
In the cafe that you currently are operating over the road, what's happening in that cafe between sort of 7 and 9 in the mornings?
7 and 9 in the morning is not the busiest period. It's just morning sort of traffic where it's mainly takeaway and a few sort of dine-in as well. So the capacity of what we're trading at the moment, seat-wise, is very similar to what we're proposing here.
Okay. And do we have Rhonda yet?
Yes. Yes.
Madam Chair, yes, Rhonda is on the, I've called her through the mobile, so she's online.
Thanks, Fausto. Rhonda, it's Marcia Downey speaking. I was just wondering whether you can tell the panel what you know about how that building has been used, and what's your knowledge of the history of use of that building?
Okay. So the site has been zoned SP2 since.
No, I'm just interested in your knowledge of how that site has been used. So the planning assessment report tells us that it's been used as a shop for many years. And do you have direct knowledge of the use as a shop? And if so, how long is your direct knowledge of that use?
My direct knowledge is only based on the archive history I've got from council's archive department, but from as far as I know, it's just been a convenience store.
Right. Okay. How long have you
been? And that's been since the 1980s.
And you're the owner of the shop, so do you run the convenience store? Or
no, sorry, I'm not the owner of the shop. I'm the town planner for the application.
Oh, sorry. Okay, right.
Sorry.
Right. Okay. And did you prepare a submission to council, which, as a town planner, you'll know that it's the applicant's responsibility to establish continuous lawful use of the site? Did you provide any submission or other information that establishes continuous lawful use since the shop use was prohibited?
Yeah, so that was provided within the Statement of Environmental Effects that was originally lodged with the DA, and there was a assessment of Division 4.11 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. That was part of the Statement of Environmental Effects.
And that set out an analysis or a submission that's based on the council records of the actual use.
Correct,
yeah?
That's right. And council's come to the same conclusion as myself. We've both done, I guess, the same archive history, and we've both obtained the same archive history and come to the same conclusion that the proposal falls into a retail premises that is currently approved for since 1952.
And so that goes to the question of consent. So in the assessment report, there are a number of development consents and other approvals. But what I'm asking about is actual continuous lawful use of the building.
Yeah, so the
like in other words, that it hasn't been abandoned or changed during
no, it's definitely currently in use at the moment as still a convenience store.
Yeah, I understand that, but what the panel needs to be satisfied of is that it has been used for the use, so the retail for the shop use, that's been used for that shop use continuously, with no gaps. Since the LEP that prohibited that use. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think that might be 1982 or some other similar date.
Yeah, it was in 1983. So there was an application dated the 23rd of the 5th, 1985, and that was for the extension of the existing commercial shop. And there was a previous one in 1983 was lodged for the extension of another shop, extension of the shop also. And the oldest application we can find was for 1975 for the additional space for groceries for the shop. And that's as far back as it goes. And from my understanding, it's been in use as a retail premises since the original application in 1952.
And have you got any evidence of that?
We just have used the evidence that we have is just lodged and approved applications of continuous use or ancillary uses to the existing use or ancillary storage to the existing use of the premises. And that started from 1952, and the last one we had was in 1985.
And then what about since 1985? Is there any information or evidence about the use of the premises since 1985? I'm not asking about consents, I'm asking about use.
From the information provided, it becomes evident that the proposal remains within the most recent consent and has operated as a retail premises since. I'll just read here.
So you're reading from the Statement of Environmental Effects?
Yes, correct, yes. So in terms of continued use since the last application in 1985, we are assuming that the premises is being used as part of the consent that was issued on the 23rd of May 1985.
And you're aware as a planner that it's the applicant's responsibility to establish that lawful continuing use, and that as the consent authority, the panel has to be satisfied of that lawful.
Correct. Correct. But if there have been no further applications since 1985, how would the panel like to be demonstrated that the store has been used?
What sometimes happens is that statements are provided from the people who've been running the shop, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's that sort of information.
I guess we could provide as a condition prior to the CC that a letter be provided by the current owners.
Do you know how long the current owners have been there?
Stella would know actually how long the current owners have been there. They've been there a while, but Stella's been there for 10 or so years, and they've definitely been there since then. Stella is the applicant.
Yeah, the current owners have been there operating for approximately the last 20 years. I've been there for 10, so I can vouch for the last 10 years. And they would have been there for approximately the last 20 years. Their English is not very good, the owners, but you're more than welcome to, they'll provide me with any information required in order to satisfy your request.
Okay, well, thank you.
Do they have like maybe a lease agreement seller would.
Well, they're owners and operators of the business, so they are actually the people that have been operating it as a convenience store for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I might add, Madam Chair, it's Robert Montgomery, and just so the applicant or the planner doesn't go away thinking that all they need to do is get a statement from the owner that they've been there since whenever. The sorts of proof that is usually supplied, can include a statement from an owner, and it's often on a statutory declaration or something of that nature. It can also be in terms of, as you suggested, a lease agreement, which there won't be in this case, but also things like receipts for deliveries of produce and stock, things like inspections and licenses from relevant government authorities that you need to be licensed from. Those sorts of things that demonstrate that it's been continuously used.
Okay, understood.
It's not just one of those things. It's a combination of those things which when you lay it out in front of the council or the panel in this case, it tells the whole story that yes, it's been continuously used, and you know, on balance that it appears that it has been. I do have a question. You can perhaps clarify something for me. I noticed that the commercial premises is divided into two separate tenancies, one of which is currently vacant. Can you shed some light on when the approval was issued for it to be divided into two separate shops?
I believe that was in 1985. Sorry, I'll just double check the consent here. So in application 1078, approved on the 23rd of the 5th, 1985, was lodged for an extension of the existing commercial area shop. And all we have from the assessment report was the property has a dual zoning and half the property fronting Napoleon Street, including a splay on the corner of Fontainebleau Street.
So is there an approved plan? There's nothing there that suggests that it was turning one shop into two.
Has an attached office and residence at the rear. The residence is currently being let to tenants. A single garage is at the boundary. No, there was no plan. All I had was an assessment report.
And it doesn't mention two tenancies. Yeah. Okay.
No,
the other
there
thing
is something about a fire rated wall between the two shops in the approval in 1985. Right.
So there was a condition about a fire rated wall.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question about that is I understand that the smaller of the two tenancies is currently vacant. Right. Can you tell us how long that's been vacant for? And how have you dealt with that in your submission for existing use rights?
So the adjoining shop front that is vacant is not proposed within this DA. And
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is used for storage by the owner. So how?
Well,
so
the council report tells us that it's vacant. It's currently vacant.
It is vacant, yes. So and
you don't know how long it's been vacant for as a commercial premises.
As a commercial premises, no. Stella, do you know how long it's been vacant for?
Okay, it's technically not vacant. I mean, the owners are currently occupying both spaces, so they use it in order to store whatever stock they've got. So it is a part of their. The only reason why it's obviously been separated now is because we're only occupying that portion of the space that's in yellow, but technically they occupy it.
But it's just not used as an activated shop front. Is that
correct?
Right?
Yeah, it's not an activated shop front, but they do occupy it. It is a part of their operation.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions, Peter or Judy?
I wanted to ask about the waste. Perhaps it's a question for you, Stella. Can you just run me through how, in your mind, the waste will work? Because there's a waste bin enclosure proposed outside the tenancy that you're not proposing to occupy.
Yeah.
So could just tell me how is there a waste holding room inside that you're going to use to?
So our proposal is to enclose the space, obviously not completely with a roof, but it will be protected with a gate. The reason why we located it there, it does have direct access with the driveway. So therefore the waste can be rolled in and rolled out easily, and likewise with the grease disposal. I can tell you, based on our current operation, we're very mindful of the residents in the area. So we do pick up the additional cost of pickups 2 or 3 times a week, so that waste is not excessive. So we're very mindful of that. But yeah, that's pretty much where it will be located, just in that corner there.
Did you say you're going to wheel it out through a driveway?
It's literally, that space there is a part of it's got a ramp where it can be wheeled out to the road, because that's where the commercial waste needs to be picked up from. It needs to be accessible through a driveway, any commercial waste, yeah.
Okay, so you'll take the waste and out of the shop and deposit it in the bins, pending collection by a contractor.
Correct.
And so that waste will sit on the footpath or on the land. It's actually part of the site permanently. It won't be, that'll be an enclosure that's always where you deposit your waste. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
No problem.
Peter, did you have any questions or comments?
Oh, yeah, look, if I could just ask in relation to the area where the outdoor seating is proposed, not too sure, probably for Rhonda, but whether or not that you have any knowledge of that area being used as part of the commercial business at all?
The outdoor seating area?
The outdoor seating area, yes, correct.
Is that being used? Will that be used as part of the cafe? Is that what your question is?
No, whether you have any knowledge of it being used in connection with the commercial premises.
The current commercial
possibly
premises?
the display of goods.
No, so they currently don't have any outdoor seating.
Okay, and you're not aware of that area having been used as part of the commercial property in the past?
No, there wasn't anything. I didn't see any conditions of consent previously in relation to outdoor seating, or any comments in the previous assessment reports that mentioned outdoor seating, though.
Thank you. Also, in relation to the report starting on probably page 25 of 34 that you're looking at, there's draft conditions of consent. Do you have those draft conditions of consent?
Of the planning panel report?
Yes.
Yes, I've got that in front of me. Yes, correct.
Okay. And do you have any issue with any of the conditions that are proposed to be imposed or recommended to be imposed?
Sorry, I'll just pull it up. It was page 25, was it?
Starts on page 25 and goes for a number of pages.
Okay. Officer recommendations. Sorry, if you just bear with me 1 second. People, front windows. No, I did notice that the hours of operation we were aware of, the food and drinks requirements we were aware of. The only thing that I thought might have been of an issue for Stella would be the lack of signage that was being approved, but it says that a sign can be erected at the front boundary of the property. No, that's it. I didn't have any issues.
Right.
Stella might have an issue with the signage that wasn't being approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda and Stella. I don't think we have any more questions on this development application, so we will now move on to the next development application that's before the panel for tonight. And after the meeting, the panel will make its decision on this one.
Okay.
And that decision will be placed on Council's website within the next week. But thank you very much, both of you, for your attendance and your assistance of the panel this evening.
Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
So that brings us to item 6.2 at this meeting, which is 1579 Botany Road, Botany. This is a modification application to amend the hours of operation for an existing petrol station use and to a 24-hour, 7 days a week use. And we have a number of people. The officer's recommendation is for refusal, and we have a number of people registered to speak in support of that officer's recommendation. And we also have Mr. Warwick Stimson, who is registered to speak against the officer's recommendation of refusal. So what we'll do is hear first from the members of the community that are registered to speak in support of the refusal, and then we'll ask Mr. Stimson to respond to any of the issues that he'd like to respond to that have been raised by the previous speakers. So first on my list, I have Ms. Rachel Thornton, who's an affected neighbour. Are you there, Ms. Thornton?
She hasn't joined the line.
Yes, I am.
Oh, yes, sorry. My apologies.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, thank you. So I'll ask all of the speakers to please confine your comments to 3 minutes, and Mr. Soot will let you know once you've reached 2 minutes, and then if you can make your concluding comments once he's let you know that you've reached 2 minutes. Also, there's no need to repeat what others have said, so really if you'd just like to make any comments that haven't yet been raised by previous speakers, that would be helpful for the panel. So Ms. Thornton, if you'd like to address the panel.
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm one of the many affected families in single-storey dwellings living directly opposite this site. We are all, of course, in favour of the council officer's decision to refuse this application and second all objections made. In relation to the sections of the EPA under Schedule 1, reasons for refusal, we would like to second these in particular as well. Surely based on the fact that an independent assessment of this application has concluded there is, quote, insufficient, quote, misleading and, quote, inaccurate information provided, this DA must be refused. An independent acoustic consultant reflects the concerns of local residents regarding section 4.151B of the EPA. Quote, that approval of this DA is likely to cause adverse acoustic impact. It is confirmed by all third parties concerned that approval would go directly against council LEP and DCP as well, not just in regards to acoustic impact, but New South Wales Police object to the extension of hours due to crime risk in our community as well. I'd like to confirm with the panel members if they have watched the 8-minute video I submitted with my request to speak, as it truly illustrates the severe current impact caused by the site and the stark contrast of the nighttime amenity restored to us once this site shuts at 10 p.m. each evening. My most recent letter of objection highlighted 11 points in the LEP this DA goes directly against and 9 points in the DCP. Examples, LEP, to ensure the protection and improvement of amenity and of the residential areas, and in particular, residential amenity, health and safety are maintained and improved. DCP Objective 16, to ensure non-residential development maintains the amenity of surrounding residential developments. I've tried to provide the panel all the factual evidence you need to refuse this DA in my letter. I am personally, mentally and physically exhausted from the strain caused by this site, both in daily impact and constantly reapplying with misleading information. It takes hundreds of hours to unpack this and prove impact that is obvious. Blind Freddie can see that this truck stop is the cause of so much impact in our community. In summary, I implore you all in your important role of making this decision to look at the site in relation to its surroundings holistically. Consider how much impact it is likely to cause, how much it already causes all of us. Also consider the acknowledgement of misleading and inaccurate information provided by the applicant on multiple occasions. Please refuse this application and ensure the protection of our community. Please do not condemn us to this 24 hours a day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms Thornton, and I can confirm that the panel did receive your video and has looked at that video, and also that the panel members have attended the site and had first-hand experience of that site and the activities on that site.
Wonderful. Thank you very much again for your time.
Thanks, Ms Thornton. And we now have Mr Andrew Lamparelli. I can see you're there, Mr Lamparelli.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well, thank you.
Okay. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. Firstly, the changing demographics.
Can I just ask you, I'm assuming that you live in the residential area behind the
Yes, I live directly across the road from the BP.
Yeah.
The points I was going to make, Botany's changing so much. Council, it's become more residential. All the trucking companies around Botany have more or less disappeared. Now, I was reading something that where Botany Council has spent $54 million on changing the look of Botany. It was a mayor's letter saying what they were doing around Banks Meadow and Botany. Now, having spent so much money on beautifying the area and having cafes, and it's really wrong to have these trucks coming into Botany, especially 24 hours a day. Now, this is something that's not needed the way Botany has changed. But on a personal level, what I want to talk about is I live directly across the road, and my bedroom faces the garage. Now, the BP can't abide by their DA as it is. Now, they operate till 10 o'clock at night and open at 6. Now, we have deliveries coming in starting at 4:30. There's trucks banging doors, milk deliveries. It's impossible to get 8 hours sleep. I'm also talking on behalf of my mother that lives across the road from me, and she's an elderly woman. This is really affecting our health. Like already operating till 10 o'clock at night and opening at 6 in the morning, we're not getting 8 hours sleep a night. It's really affecting our health. Now, when they start getting deliveries at from 4:30 in the morning, it makes it impossible. I've also complained numerous times that they have their waste collection, sometimes between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking about the big trucks that come and bang away to collect their rubbish. I'm talking about industrial bins. Now, I don't know how many times I've complained. I also went out to film one of these occasions where the truck driver actually threatened me. He wanted me to stop recording and he threatened me. Now, this BP shouldn't have been built in a residential area in the first place. It should have been built at the port. Now, I'm asking the panel, please don't subject us to any more grief than what we're getting already. Now, as a former police officer, I checked the way the consent was given to build this truck stop, and there's a lot of question marks. What I'm asking the panel now is not to condemn us for the wrongs that were already done. Now, the other thing about having trucks at night, there's less traffic on Botany Road. So these trucks are coming down Botany Road at a higher speed than normal. Then when they reach the BP, they hit the brakes, these containers are shaking all over the place, and they turn in at a higher speed, which makes more noise than what it does during the day. Now, the pollution, the dangers that are associated with this, I'm asking the panel, please knock it on the head. Don't let it go through. Now, another thing that...
Lamparelli, you're out of time, so if you would just make your final comments, please.
My last point is also, not only affecting our health, but it's affected the value of our properties. I did a search with another property similar to mine, only 50 meters away, that don't have the trucks coming, and there's a difference of around $250,000. Now, if this goes 24 hours, my home is worth nothing practically, because no person's going to want to live across the road with B doubles coming 24 hours a day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Lamparelli. Next we have Mrs. Alexia Mack. Are you there, Mrs. Mack?
Calling now.
Hello.
Mrs. Mack? Is that Alexia Mack?
Yes, it is.
Oh, thanks for joining the meeting, Mrs. Mack. You've got 3 minutes, so if you'd like to say what you'd like to say to the panel, please. And I'm assuming that you live in close proximity to the service station. If you can just explain to the panel exactly where it is that your property is in relation to the service station.
Not a problem. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm a resident with a young family who lives directly opposite the site in question. All the residents living directly opposite have either young children of their own or as grandparents, regularly mind their grandkids. The community of Botany has changed over time from being an industrial area to one of families. We bought in Botany 11 years ago as it was becoming known as the area for families with young children. We were well aware and accepting of the BP's trading hours, which were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the time. Their hours have already been extended once to 10 p.m. on a trial period, with high-flow diesel off at 9 p.m. On regular occasions, there are trucks filling up after 9 p.m. and also waiting before the opening at 6 a.m. Whilst trucks over 12.5 metres aren't supposed to travel past Hill Street, they surely do. Some trucks come only for their drivers to get food, and whilst they leave their motors idling, and then not to mention the use of air brakes within Botany Road. No reports can highlight the effect noise has on residents when you have traffic noise for all of those hours. When you're up with a young child, working, or just trying to unwind after the day, it is non-stop. Can you imagine if you were having to listen to that noise throughout the night while trying to sleep every night as well? And whilst the application advises no high-flow diesel trucks between midnight and 4:30 a.m, there isn't compliance with the current times. So what is to say these hours would be here too? Fuel delivery is being excluded from these times. The application is requesting 24/7 for that service, so there won't be a break. With young children in the house, their health is at the forefront of our objection. Traffic noise has been identified by health authorities as being abrupt noise, and any interruption would lead to sleep disruption. And this just isn't in kids, but adults as well. The sleep disruption won't just be for the immediate residents, but all residents along the route the traffic takes to get to the BP station in and out. Studies have shown night noise travels much further than daytime. There is no 24-hour trading businesses within the immediate area of BP. Botany community is continuing to grow. As pointed out in Councillor Banks Meadow New Town Centre pamphlet, councillors have a vision to enhance and complement this growth. This application does not do this. If this application was to be approved, we also have concern of the effect it will have as a gathering place. I've only got a very small mark. By customers who already walk past after leaving the pub, also encouraging carhoons to congregate whilst on their nightly drives, which is already a known issue within Bayside. If this application was to be approved, it would be set as a precedent for other businesses to apply for 24-hour trade, while the community does not need this. We are in support of the council officer's decision to refuse this application. Thank you for hearing me tonight, and apologies for my voice. As school has started back, I seem to come down with a head cold from my child.
Oh, gee. Thank you, Mrs. Mack. I'm sorry that you've got your head cold from your child.
Oh, you know what happens when school goes back.
I'm sure it'll be happening all over the place. But thank you for addressing the panel this evening.
Thank you for hearing me.
We now have Mr. Warren Totten. Are you there, Mr. Totten?
Yes, I am.
If you'd like to address the panel, please, and if you could try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and Mr. Soot will let you know once you've reached 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for letting me get on here to talk about this. I've been looking through the Bayside Council Development Control Plan for Botany South. The Plan B section is guidelines which are not in keeping with this application. The council can refer their own guidelines, 9B41, the redevelopment of this area is to provide a transition from non-residential to surrounding residential uses. And this truck stop, which if you look on Google Earth, it says it's a truck stop, does not go in with this B7 zone. At the moment, a truck has just pulled into here. It's a B double, which is not supposed to be up here, and it is doing a delivery to this place. Health-wise, it affects everyone's sleep patterns. It's just completely ridiculous the way they are. We've caught them early opening. They don't stick by what they said they will do. And to actually have deliveries 24/7, it's not like it used to be where you had flowing out of the tankers into the tanks. LPG gas is run by motors pumped out of here. This is what's going to happen 24/7 if this people goes on. Thank you very much for listening to me, but that's, I've just had to close my front windows because of these trucks just coming in now. One just arrived. As I said, it's a B double, which is not supposed to be on Botany Road up here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Totten, for taking the time to come and speak to the panel this evening. It's appreciated. Our last speaker speaking for the officer's recommendation for refusal is Councillor Scott Morrissey. Are you there, Councillor Morrissey?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you well, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your guidance. I'm not going to I'll try not to repeat what's already been said by our residents. I live approximately 500 metres from the site, so I'm talking as a resident, but also on behalf of numerous residents who have contacted me and asked me to speak to the planning panel tonight. I want to commend the officer's report and the detail of the issues raised, particularly the fact that they've gone to an independent acoustic consultant who has provided more facts in relation to the flaws in the report provided by the applicant. I think people often forget that there's low-rise housing to the south, and the impacts to the north of Botany Road, certainly the impacts the businesses have on those residents on the north side. The residents, as you've heard, accept the status quo. They understand the operation, they understand the nature of botany, but rightfully resist change that is going to have negative impacts to their livelihoods. One of the important things that stood out for me and a lot of residents was the fact that the New South Wales Police do not support this application due to 11 crime risks at a medium rated level that will impact the area. The adverse acoustic impacts have largely been talked about here, but I just want to say, in my personal view, you know that it appears to be some deceptive comments there, given that they have not undertaken an attended noise measurements. They've done this with computer modelling and modelled at various other times, but they haven't actually been there to understand the ambient noise and the impacts it's going to have on residents. And to conclude in the report that sleep disturbance is not anticipated and that there are no noise-related issues is completely false. And if people would spend the time with our residents and with our locals, they would understand the impacts that this is having on our community. As is noted in the summary of the report, there's been 73 submissions. There's been 2 petitions. The 2 petitions were obtained in a period of 6 days. had our groups locally and our residents had more time, those numbers would have certainly increased. We've got 440 odd objections to this proposal, and I think that voice of our community is loud and clear there. So, without wanting to repeat others, I'll shorten to say that the proposed development is not in the public interest, and this is consistent with the determination made by the Botany Bay City Council way back in 2013, where the council was concerned with the environmental and social impacts of the noise, the fumes, the traffic, and antisocial behaviour. This is going to set, if approved, this will set an undesirable precedent that, as evidenced by local residents, is not appropriate at this location, and therefore I implore you to agree and endorse with the officer's recommendation. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Councillor Morrissey. Do any panel members have any questions for any of the speakers this evening? You're all very clear and eloquent in communicating your concerns about the proposal, so I don't have any questions, but just checking if there are any questions from the panel. No?
No.
All right, thanks, panel. We now have Mr. Warwick Stimson, who's registered to speak on behalf of the applicant, and he's speaking against the officer's recommendation of refusal. Are you there, Mr. Stimson?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, thanks. And you also have 3 minutes, but if you could in particular address the issues that have been raised by the speakers, including a number of them have referred to non-compliances with the existing approved hours. If you've got any comments to make about that, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the panel tonight. Just listening to the presenters just then, there were 3 things I just wanted to note. The first thing is the compliance with the LEP and the DCP as noted in the officer's report to the panel this evening. The second thing was there's no record of substantiated complaints against or compliance action against the operator of the site that we are aware of, and obviously that would influence the way that we presented the application to council. The third thing that I wanted to note was the previous agenda item for Napoleon Street. Council noted, or you noted, Madam Chair, that it was in with the council as to the hours operation prior to tonight's meeting. Now, that's important because the previous application that we lodged for this matter was withdrawn. We withdrew it due to the COVID pandemic and the inability to obtain accurate acoustic data through that period. But in that application, there was a peer review of the acoustic report that we had submitted at the time, and we were afforded an opportunity to respond to that peer review at the time. For this application, a different acoustic consultant was selected by council to peer review our assessment, and we've not had an opportunity to respond to council, and I'm hoping the panel's been furnished with my submission, one-page submission on the 28th of October, requesting that this matter be deferred from tonight's meeting, because had we had the opportunity to review that peer review, there are matters that our acoustic consultant believes can be responded to, and compliance with all of the requirements in an acoustic sense met. Those changes are outlined in that letter, and I trust the panel has that letter.
I can confirm the panel's received that letter, Mr. Stimson.
Yeah, excellent. In addition to that, there are a number of matters that have been raised in that peer review that our acoustic consultant, I think, should be afforded the opportunity to respond to. And in general, for the overall application, we think out of, in the spirit of fairness, we need time to do that, prepare or undertake some additional logging and present some amendments to the application that we think would be far more palatable to the surrounding residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Stimson. Any questions for Mr. Stimson or any comments from the panel? Nothing. All right. Well, thank you very much, all of the speakers this evening. The panel very much appreciates you all taking the time to address us, and it helps us to better understand the proposal. Just for your information, you can be assured that we've all read the council assessment report. As I said, attended the site during operation of the business, and also read a summary of the submissions that have been made and objections that have been made in relation to the development application. So what will happen now is that the meeting will close and the panel will make its determination of each of the development applications. This is a modification application on our agenda this evening, and that those determinations will be placed on council's website within a week. So again, excuse me, thank you very much for your attendance this evening, and you can leave the meeting now, and you'll by checking the website of council, you'll be able to read the panel's determination within the next 7 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Checking. I'll just close Facebook. Sunny, can you close Facebook, please?